Hello and welcome to the News Mongolia on MNB World. It's Friday, June the 11th. I'm Batsir Namshir. And from top stories, the head of the OSCE Special Election Observation Mission introduced preliminary report on the presidential election observation. 1,622 more cases of COVID-19 recorded in Mongolia. G7 leaders to pledge 1 billion COVID-19 vaccine doses for poorer countries. For other news, stay tuned. The Ministry of Health reported that 1,622 new COVID-19 cases were confirmed nationwide in the past 24 hours, and 8 more people have died.
As of today, 1,622 new COVID-19 cases were confirmed. Within the past 24 hours, 684 more patients have recovered, including 460 patients who were being treated at hospitals and 224 who were being treated at home. Unfortunately, 8 people between the ages of 50 to 82 died due to COVID-19 complications. Of today's new cases, 1 is hospital-acquired and 30 are imported cases detected from citizens repatriated from Afghanistan. Out of the remaining domestic cases, 1,100 cases were confirmed in Ulaanbaatar and 491 were confirmed in the provinces. Among the 7,498 COVID-19 patients being treated at around 50 hospitals nationwide, 63% are showing mild symptoms of illness and 138 are in critical condition. Additionally, 7,988 patients are being treated at home. Over 19,000 people were vaccinated yesterday. Health officials encourage people to strictly follow the precautionary measures in the upcoming 10 days in the hopes of stabilizing the rising COVID-19 cases in Mongolia.
Mongolia's presidential election was held on Wednesday, and the National Election Commission announced its results. This year, observers led by Lolita Chigane, the head of the OSCE Special Election Observation Mission, worked in Mongolia to observe the presidential election. On Thursday, the observation mission held a press briefing to introduce their preliminary observation statement.
ODIHR's Special Election Assessment Mission to Mongolia started its observation and assessment process on May 21st. The mission focused on issues identified by the Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights Assessment Mission ahead of the election in order to assess the presidential election for its compliance with the OSCE commitment and other international standards for democratic elections, as well as with national legislation.
In general, Mongolia is an OSCE participating state, and as such, it has undertaken commitments to invite other participating states, their representatives, to observe elections. So in our mission, we have an international team of 10 experts coming from 7 different countries, and we are also helped with translation, for instance, by our national staff.
According to the special mission's preliminary report, Mongolia's presidential election was well run in difficult circumstances and candidates were able to reach out freely to voters, but overly restrictive candidate eligibility and the blurred line between journalism and political advertising, as well as the absence of any public debate, limited the range of choices and information for voters. The legal framework has improved following changes made since the last presidential election and form an adequate basis for democratic elections to take place. Nevertheless, a number of key ODIHR recommendations remain unaddressed. In the limited number of polling stations visited by the observers, the process was well administered and organized. The election campaign itself was highly regulated and the campaign period was shortened due to the recent legal changes. At the same time, observers noted an apparent inequality of resources and the involvement of public officials in the campaign that increased the advantages of the ruling party.
The general legal framework is conducive to democratic elections. However, there are some excessive restrictions on nomination and candidate eligibility. We also noted that the campaign regulations are excessively prescriptive. We concluded that there is a lack of transparency in campaign financing. We also saw that despite the vibrancy of the media scene, there is little discussion about the substance, programs, and opinions of the candidates. And also we concluded that some parts of voter list system could be improved in terms of allowing for independent verification.
Campaign financing was a further area of concern. Although certain improvements have been introduced in the process of submitting campaign finance reports, the overall framework for the campaign financing lacks sufficient oversight and transparency, leaving voters underinformed about the sources of donations to contestants. The media landscape is diverse. However, observers noted concerns about the lack of independence of many major outlets. While the media played an important role in informing voters about the election process, there were misgivings over the blurred line between news and paid content submitted by contestants. These limited the independent information available to voters about candidates and their programs, reported the OSCE Special Mission. The press briefing was organized on June 10th at the Blue Sky Hotel.
In 2019, more than 577,000 tourists came to Mongolia and generated 1.6 trillion Mongolian tugrux in income. More than 50% of all tourists entered Mongolia through Bointohua Airport and the rest through various land border ports of entry. Industry experts expect to attract around 500,000 tourists a year by developing cross-border area tourism.
Tourists can travel to the border area for 2 to 3 days. It is possible to travel to beautiful places with nature sightseeing places like Хамрын-Хийд, Нүдэнгийн хонхор, Эргэлгийн зоо, and Бүрдэн Булаг.
We offer regular routes to tourists. Tourists coming to our country for cross-border tourism will enter through fixed ports. These tourists will travel along the road and return. This operation will be performed by an authorized company. In addition, a group of tourists with more than 5 people will have to follow regulations on how to pass through border crossings.
Russian citizens are able to travel to our country without a visa. Therefore, the number of Russian tourists is growing year by year. Tourists from China used to be issued visas on blue passports, but this practice was abolished in 2016. Many countries around the world are developing cross-border tourism and increasing their profits. Therefore, visa flexibility is the most important factor in the development of tourism in our country.
Most countries in the world have very flexible visa requirements. For example, in Thailand, citizens of 140 to 150 countries can travel without a visa, so there are no restrictions. In order to increase the flow of tourists, other countries have a free visa policy. Mongolia ranks 128 out of 140 countries in the world in terms of international openness and visa regulations. Our country is ranked almost 10th from last.
The World Tourism Organization has issued international recommendations for 14 activities, including airlines, hotels, travel events, and conferences. As tourists travel being fearful of contracting COVID-19 while traveling, experts advise to be well organized when organizing cross-border travel.
Now let's take a look at currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Following this, let's take a look at the weather forecast for the world's major cities. Well, that's all for today, and thank you for staying with us. We'll see you next week with more news and updates. Have a nice weekend. Goodbye.